at 6 o'clock, so we'll get started. This is a very informal session, so please don't be afraid to raise your hand, ask questions, things like that. But we've got a little time to spend here this evening, so happy to do that and address as many questions as possible to share things with you. Hopefully the battery's not going to die. We'll see. So, my name is Dr. Weisman. If you've not seen me before, I serve as the Assistant Dean for Student Affairs here in the college. And so my role, and I'm a faculty member as well, so I teach in the program and I still do clinics. So my role in the college is the office that I oversee. We do recruitment, admissions, student life, and career transition. So it's kind of everything as a student. And then I teach in all 4 years of the program. And I do emergency medicine and teach in hospital. So if you see me on clinics, usually you're seeing me at midnight or 2 in the morning or something like that. And it's usually for something that's not fun. So it's great to have you all here. It's wonderful to have a big group. And again, we're going to today talk about a little bit of what the classes look like as far as who's applied, who's gotten in for the class of 2022. That's our current first years. And then we'll talk about the application process. And then the application itself and what we look at. And then really, again, throughout that whole thing, you can please ask questions, because the goal is to help you get some guidance on maybe how you're applying and when you start to apply. I do serve on the admissions committee, and so there are 12 faculty, there are 12 of us that do that. And so I give talks like this, but that's the furthest I go, because as an admissions committee member, I don't do and I can't do one-on-one conversations and things like that about the application. It's just not fair to everyone else. So I would give talks like this, but that's really where it stops as far as that. So I just wanted to point that out. If someone thought they wanted to chat with me about their actual application, I'm able to do that. I have some staff that can do that, and we can talk about that if you have that. All right?
Jim, I got a question on the 12. You said faculty, but I thought there were some out-state veterinarians that could...
There are 3 Indiana Veterinary Medical Association members, so they're ex officio and non-voting, but they serve on. So there's 15 on the committee, 12 of us, or 12 faculty members. Voting, yeah. But you may, as you get to the interview stage, they sit in on the interviews and ask questions and offer their input at all times. So we do have 3 veterinarians from around the state. And we balance that, really. There's a food animal producer, there's an equine person, and there's a small animal practitioner. So we have a nice balance of who, and I'm thinking about all 3 of them are Purdue undergrads as well, so that's good.
And I got one more question.
Yeah.
Is it a secret who they are, the 15?
Oh, that's a great question. I don't know that we've ever published the list. I don't know that it's a true secret.
Because I've known one of the out-state veterinarians that came.
Sure, that's a great question, Richard. Because you eventually, as you get to the interview process, know who we are because we're all there. That's something that we should probably, we'll talk about it. Maybe we can certainly put on the website. Because I don't think it's a secret by any means. I don't think it should be a secret. We'll have to think about that and make sure that no one has a big issue with that. But yeah, it's a great point. So I want to first just give you some idea of what the current class, the class of 2022, so those are current first years. So the folks that would have been in last year's admission cycle, that would have started here just a few weeks ago. This is what we look at. We had, as you can see, a little over 1,100 applications. So I should stop. I usually ask this, and I didn't. How many of you are in this current cycle, the one that closes on the 17th? So a few of you, okay? How many of you are in that cycle but aren't planning on pursuing it this year? You just started the process. Because you can now do that in VMCAS. You can open an application without having to pay and things and kind of get it started and then save it to the next year. So we see that as it's really interesting because as we watch this number, usually this number is really 1,500, but by the time it got to who actually truly was applying is 11. So that means to me, there were roughly 400 people that started an application just to kind of get it started. And Mark Purdue is one of their schools. And so we're assuming that in the next year, they'll be in this next cycle. Because right now, the number we're seeing that we don't know how many applications will come out is 1,700. But we don't know how many of those will back down to actual true applications. So anyway, application process, you can see the Indiana non-resident side, international. Again, here at Purdue, you kind of go into 2 parts. your residents or non-residents. International students are in the non-resident pool. So we divide you from the beginning, and you're considered separately resident or non-resident throughout the entire process. There's several stages, but ultimately, the first stage that folks hear about is the interview stage. So a decision is made right around finals week. So we notify you at the end of finals week. When I first came back, we used to notify people on Monday of finals week. That's not right? Kind of correction week. So I changed that. And we moved it to the end of the week at 5 o'clock. So at like 4:59, so the phone shut off. So interview stage is the first part that happens, and then from there it goes into who gets offered. So you see we go down from roughly 1,100 down to somewhere in the neighborhood of 246. That number varies, it really just depends. It could be 246, it could be 300, something like that. It just varies a little bit. So then from that, it drops down to who sits in the class. Okay, so this shows you the stats. We have 84 students in the class. That is our planned size. That's what we shoot for, 84 students. We have 46, in the current freshman class, we have 46 residents and 38 non-residents. We are very true to this 80-20 rule. In the applicant pool, it's 80-20. In the seated class, it's 80-20. So, and we don't see that changing in the near future. So 80-20 as far as that goes. And then we have about a 20% underrepresented minority presence in the class. And for the college as a whole, somewhere in the 23% range to 25% of all our student body. So I want to show you this. We'll talk a little later where grades, how they factor in. But this gives you an idea of what the GPAs look like. And so on that Destination Veterinary Medicine handout that I sent around, this is for the class of 2022, the current freshmen. All these stats end up on that report. So that should be produced in the next few weeks because we kind of wait to get the stats together. So this stuff will also be online if you want to go back and reference it. But these are the stats. And so I think it's important for you to look at, we look at a CUNE GPA and we look at a core GPA, the mean of that. So the CUNE GPA is all of your collegiate grades averaged out. So if you've only college grades you have are from Purdue, then whatever your GPA on your transcript is, that's where that number comes from. If you happen to have a Purdue transcript and you went to another school for a couple of summer classes or something, and they're not back here on a Purdue transcript with the grade, they would be averaged in and be put part of this. Okay? So any collegiate credit you have that has a grade attached factors into that CUNE. That's a question sometimes we get. Does that make sense? Not just Purdue. Doesn't have to be able to transfer Purdue. It's any collegiate grade with a grade. The core GPA are all of the prereqs, short of, well, I should say it's the math, it's the science prereqs. So chemistry, organic, biochemistry, genetics, things like that, physics. So we pull out those prereqs and determine a GPA as well. Because that's the closest we can get to a score that represents everyone in the pool as a mean. And so of course you'll see that sometimes it's a little bit lower than the CUNE GPA, because those are pure science classes. Any questions on that? We get a lot of questions about how GPA is figured, so I want to address that now if there is anything. Yes?
So the ranges, are those people that got accepted or just who applied?
You bet. This is actually people sitting in the class of 2022. So this gives you the range. Now I'll make a point about that because I bring up, and I hear this a lot, and you don't have to be a 4.0 student to go to veterinary school. You have to be a strong, serious academic student to go to veterinary school. When I make my votes in the admissions committee, my goal is every person I say yes for, which we vote on every person, I want to make sure in 4 years they walk out of here with their doctor of veterinary medicine. So I want to make sure they have what it takes for the metrics we can use to look at that. Okay? That doesn't mean you have to be a 4.0 student. And that's, once you make that argument, and you do well, Those are pretty strong grades and means, but you gotta do well. Yes, ma'am?
For the GPA calculations, if you enter the class twice, would that be better if you scores the average?
Great question. So the question is, if you repeat a class or take a class again, what happens? We average those scores. It's a flat out average. So every grade is counted, and then the mean is determined. Okay?
Because that's different. What Purdue takes the last one.
Yeah, that should look, so that is a good point. If you happen, so people on my team, they look at your transcript, and if you have two organic chemistry grades, and they see that, and they will go back and redetermine your Q GPA. That does happen. So all grades, multiple takes, or single takes are averaged in. Yes?
Do you have the last 45 days?
We do not officially look at that. We do look for trends, and I'll talk about that in the holistic look. We do look for trends of how you're doing, right? Many people have a bump in the road adapting to college, especially at a big university sometimes. And so what we want to see is a positive trend forward. So what's not good is if you're doing really well in your first or second year, and then all of a sudden your third or fourth year, there's this dive. That's not a good sign, right? So in essence, we do look at that, but we do not look at it as a mathematical formula. Some schools do that, though. Yes, sir.
Do you have a median for these data sets or no?
We do. I didn't publish it here, and we can't have it actually. We don't even put it on the website, but we can determine it. If it's something you're really interested in, you can email me and we can provide that.
Okay, very good.
Anything else? All right. So I just want to show you this too, since you're wanting to enter this profession. I think it's good for you to know about how you enter it as you exit school. This is some employment data for the past 3 years. Really excellent employment opportunities. All these folks here, because you have to think about, we have a pretty small N, right? It only takes a few people to make the percentage. So this represents literally 3 or so people. And all those people were going to go do something in life and then decide what they wanted to do after and they already have their DVM now. They want to go have fun for 6 months or something and worry about getting a job. So in the class of 2018, 4.2 job offers per student. And that's projected to continue well for the next probably 10 to 12 years. There is a significant shortage of veterinarians all across this country. It's only getting better. So therefore, you're in the driver's seat. And that means you're going to ask for money.
That's amazing.
Money, because you got to pay this. So let me look at this real quick. So I did want to show you the Purdue mean. So we are, for practicing veterinarians, so we pull out people that have zero debt. Because in the class of 2018, there were 12 people that had zero debt. But we also pull out people that, basically had zero debt. That's the best way to say it. And also, in this column, we pulled out people that are doing internships or residencies or graduate programs. So these are practicing positions. Our average was right at 87.5. The national average was, as you see there, 83,000. Okay? Now, again, there's some variation to that depending on where you're at in the country. If I give you an Indiana number, I tell you it's about right at 86,000 for Indiana people. If you live in New York City, it's about 100-something thousand, which is equivalent to 86,000 here in Indiana. So there is some cost of living variation. But that's our mean. For the past several years, we've been right at or well above the national average, which is awesome, because we graduate great veterinarians, and we teach them how to negotiate. You get more money. I do that, so I want you to do that. The other part is debt. Significant. Now these include both residents and non-residents. And on our website, you can see the cost. You are all here at Purdue, where we've had a tuition freeze for now 7 years. That's the same for vet school. We've not had an increase either. So that's a huge benefit to veterinary students. Because when you talk about a tuition increase, when you're talking about a $20,000 or $45,000 tuition bill, a small percentage is a big number. So it's really helped our students. But this is the national data for the class of 2018, and unfortunately, I'm sure by 2019, nationally, we will break easily the $200,000 mark, which is not good. There are things being done to work on that, but that's still the number. Yes?
Does the percent of students employed, does that include those who go on for residencies?
no. We're talking about these, no. I pulled those out. Because everybody interprets employment as residents and interns a little bit differently. So I want to keep the numbers all based upon practice. Like, yes.
So is that all for private practice?
When you say private practice, define.
Like, GP?
So no, not necessarily. I mean, we have people that do non-general practice. As far as there are people, we had someone that left and actually did hospice type work, and so that's not really general practice, but they did it right out of school. So this is, I guess the best way to say it's private practice. So that includes corporate practices, practice groups, and things like that. Yeah, but there's no specialists in that because they don't have time to become a specialist yet. Yes.
For the debt, is that just for the vet school debt, or is that including undergraduate?
This is total educational debt, so that includes undergrad. Total undergrad. Because no matter what, at the end of the day, you got to pay it all back. Now, the last time I saw, and you guys may know this better than I do because I don't look at the undergrad debt as much, but I think it was somewhere in the mid-20s was the average I've seen publicized. 20,000 average national for undergrad debt. So most of this is veterinary school debt. Yes, sir.
Why did the class size get smaller?
It doesn't. What happens is some people don't make it out on that schedule, so that's why. So it's really academic. Could be academic nutrition, or there could be people. Actually, in this class, we had 2 people decide really into their senior year, and they decided that veterinary medicine is not what they wanted to do, and they left the program in their 4th year. Wow. So I bring that up, and I don't usually talk about that, but I think it's important that you all look at that and know that's what you want to do. Because if you leave in 4th year, you've got probably 3/4 of that number already. Wow. And so you better have a job that can support this. But ultimately, you've got to do something you want to do. I just hope that before you come to veterinary school, that's been decided. But things do change in people's lives. And that's totally up to them. And they thought long and hard about it. We talked long and hard about it. But you've got to do what you want to do.
Related to that, Jim, that's a good question. I saw on the website a couple of years ago, there was one year, there was a class that lost 7. And I was always going to ask you, can you tell
Sure.
us?
That was more academic related. There was a class that had some significant, so again, I said, so vet school's challenging. There's no doubt about it. I would tell you that I don't think it's the hardest material taught on this campus by any means. It goes back to the volume of material. We're making practitioners in a very short amount of time, and the ability to be able to comprehend that, assimilate it in an appropriate way, remember it, and then translate it back not only in the classroom but on the clinic floor is a tall challenge. And so that year, there were a significant amount of people that did not meet the academic standard. And really all of those people then fell back a year and went through the program after some remediation.
Oh, okay.
Good question.
So I'm going to be your partner. I know one of my past TAs is in her 2nd class here, Rochelle. I don't know if you know her.
Yeah.
She's super smart, and I had lunch with her last spring, her first year in vet school here, and I said, okay, if your busiest undergraduate week, she was in biochemistry, is equal to 1, what was your first year of vet school like, a typical week? And she said 2 or 3. So just that.
No, I agree, and it's and again, it's just the volume. And our students, remember, as a veterinary student, you get here about 7:30 in the morning, and you leave about 4 or 5. It's high school with the drama too. We don't really have homeroom, but we have homeroom because you travel as a cohort.
Mm-hmm.
It is. The information there's a lot of it. And there's labs and things that we have to do, live animal labs. From week 1, you're working with animals, so there are responsibilities. Even during onboarding for the class of 2022, onboarding is a whole week before vet school starts. So they came back a week before classes, they got here. And even on that Wednesday, so before classes started, they started taking care of their first patient, which is their teaching animal. So they were already taking care before classes started because they have an animal to take care of and have responses. So their groups were working with their animals before classes started. And so we do that because we're building a professional. We're not also building someone that's just a really smart doctor, but you got to be a professional too, so it's a whole package. All right. VIMCAS, a few of you are in the current cycle, submitted. I would hit send really quick. My advice to everyone is, I would make sure you have your application in, if you can, at least a month ahead of the deadline. Let me talk to you about how that works. So I actually said, and I'm just finishing up as the chair of the AAVMC, so Association of American Veterinary Colleges, Admissions Recruitment Committee, so the group that oversees admissions to all veterinary colleges that are AVMA accredited. I've held that position for a few years. I'm ready to be off of it. And, you know, what I tell people more and more across this country when I talk a lot of different places is, all this goes to a place in the Upper East Coast, outside of Boston. And you think about CAS systems, so a pharmacy uses this, PT CAS uses this, nursing, there's all nursing practitioners. So this place receives all of these applications electronically. And it's in a building where people sit in a room about this size, taking all of your material, and your transcripts especially, and running it through a computer to analyze them and make sure it's accurate, it's verified. So it takes a while. The deadline is September 17th. We won't have final applications, meaning we won't have everyone's true application until sometime in the middle of October, because they have to run through this process. The problem is, if you're someone in that stack after September 17th, and you made an error that's not VIMCAS's fault, you can't correct it. If your transcript didn't get there, because of whatever reason, you don't know that until they get through the pile of them and realize that you're missing a transcript. And your application is dead prior to even getting to us or anyone that you applied to. So I urge you to make sure you get your applications in prior to at least a month before, so that way you're not at the bottom of the pile during that whole last push. The reason why I bring that up is when we look at the characteristics of applicants, what percentage do you think hit the send button in the last 2 weeks of this cycle? I heard 20, I heard 70%.
80.
It's about 75%.
Okay.
And I mean, all I can say, and I'm not, I say this at Purdue because I want you guys not to be the folks who do that, right? Because there's nothing can be done about it if there's a problem. And you don't get your money back, by the way. So do it early, submit it, so you're not worried about it.
If you do it early and there is a mistake, is there a chance?
Correct, yes. Just so you're ahead of that timeline, you can fix it. The biggest problem comes back to missing transcripts. That's the biggest problem. Because if you have just a data error where you put a A instead of an A minus, they'll fix that. But if you're missing a transcript, and it's after September 17th, because the rules say you must submit everything by September 17th, it's done. And they won't know that until they go through the pile of transcripts they have. All right? So one thing to help that is we can all talk to the university about doing electronic transcripts. That would make your life better as a student. You all are the ones that can make that happen. I'll just say that. So talk to people about that, electronic transcripts. So, these things have to be there. Applications, transcripts, and 3 ELORs are electronic letters of recommendation. That's what an ELOR is. Electronic letter of recommendation. All this stuff has to be there by this deadline, or your application is considered incomplete and no further action happens. Yes?
What's the date today? Because I got about 6 to do.
Any 3 people, or is that
The 12th, good, I got 5 days.
So the question is, who should write ELORs, or what's the requirement? Every school is a little bit different, but the minimum we have across the country is 3. Here at Purdue, we require 1 to be a veterinarian, and the other 2 can be whomever. They can all be veterinarians. They can be faculty members. You have people. We'll talk about ELORs now. References to me are very important in the sense that you have to choose the right people. I think references hurt you, not necessarily help you. Okay? Because everyone, if you choose the right person, everybody should have positive letters of reference, right? But I will tell you that we don't get positive letters of reference at times. So here's how you ask for a letter of recommendation. First thing is you find someone that knows you. They need to be able to talk about you and talk about your ability from where they saw you at point A to where they saw you at point Z. And hopefully it was a nice, steady, positive incline. Because we want to see that you have that growth potential, okay? So that's the first thing. So they need to know you. It can't be someone that's sitting in a class that had 200 people and they look at their grade book and say that you got an A, so you must be a good student. We see letters like that. That tells us nothing about you, nothing about your potential. It was just you did well academically. But your transcript says you got an A, so we knew that already. The other thing is when you talk with someone, you should ask them, will you write a positive letter of recommendation? It's fine to ask them that. People ask me that. I said no before. It's not because I'm going to say something bad. I may not know them well enough. So you need to put us on the spot and ask us. And if they say no, you shake their hand, you thank them, and you walk away, and you find someone else. Okay? But ask the question, don't assume. And your resume, your CV, whatever you have, so they know the full picture of you, because they may not know everything about you. And that lets them write a more robust letter of recommendation. That was my long answer to your short question. Okay? It's very important. We see negative letters of recommendation in applications.
Wow.
And that's not good. Yes?
Okay, so for the transcripts, I know all of them have said it says they have to be postmarked before the 17th. So they need to be in the mail by then, or need to be.
They have to have a postmark on them,
Okay.
right? Yeah. So the problem, so that's about the only thing, because this is electronic and that's electronic. So those have to be like electronically postmarked, if you will. So it has to be postmarked. And they used to be in their shop. About 4 years ago, they had to have it in their boxes. And we changed that as a committee because you have no control for that. We use the post office. And right now, unfortunately, sorry, right now we have this big hurricane coming. Every year it seems like this happens, and the important thing is safety to them. But right now, for folks living in that area, there will be some issues because of the hurricane, and then people can appeal the deadline. Because I think for the past 3 years, of course, last year we had Puerto Rico at this time, but for the past 3 or 4 years, right around the webcast deadline, there's been a hurricane. So it's a timing thing.
If you took a class at another Purdue campus, do you need to get a transcript from them, or no, because it's part of your?
It's a great question. So the question was, if I took a class at a regional campus, so Purdue, Fort Wayne, or something like that, my best answer to you is this. If you put on, because in VMCAS you have to list the schools you attend, right? You should have a transcript for every one of those schools that you list. So you would put Purdue University West Lafayette, and you have a main transcript. Then you also put Purdue University Fort Wayne. Make sure you have Purdue University Fort Wayne transcript. That sounds a little silly, but not all campuses, like other universities, are that one-for-one. And so the rule in VMCAS is you have to have an original transcript for every institution. I fought that because, if you're getting the same information on our transcript, but some schools don't do that. So you have to have an original transcript for every school you list. And that includes high school. Now, not a high school transcript, but if you took an AP course or got college credit as a high school senior, you have to have a transcript representing that AP course or that credit that was given to you. Okay? From whoever granted the AP credit. So any credit you're claiming, you have to have the original institution. That is another way that stops applications. Because you'll think all my transcripts are in, but one AP calculus class that you took as a senior that gave you credit from XYZ school, if it's not the original one, that would stop your application because you did not submit all transcripts. And that's outside the control of the schools. This is a nationwide VMCAS issue. So we can do nothing about it here at Purdue. Yes?
Is the deadline always on the 17th?
It's really the 15th, and it just falls on that Monday that's around it. Yeah. So it's the 15th is what it's supposed to be. I guess the 15th is a Saturday this year, so it's always the 15th. So next year it'll be back to a Friday probably. Yeah. Yes?
When do they open?
So, great question. Question is, when does VMCAS open? Traditionally, it's in mid-May. And I will tell you, and actually this will be interesting, will be my focus group. How many of you would like to have VMCAS open all year long? How many would you use it? There would be about a month window, probably in March, that it gets shut to do, they have to upgrade things. But there's a big push to keep VMCAS open all year long. And I still don't know if I see why that's necessary, because I still think 75% of you will do it in the last 3 weeks. But it's interesting to see how many hands went up, so that's good to know. But right now, it opens in kind of mid-May. All right, yes?
So, I'm not sure if you would know this, but do you know what percentage of Purdue undergraduates get into Purdue Vet School? Like, do you have a preference if you went to Purdue?
Great question. So the question is there a preference? First of all, is there a preference for Purdue undergrads? Secondly, what percentage? I know those numbers I'd have to look up, but I can determine that. And no, there is no preference. So you don't get a bonus point for being a Purdue undergrad. I think where it does help you is a lot of you are involved in Purdue Vet Club. A lot of you have faculty members in undergrad that we know, so we know what they're. I've known Dr. Roy since I had Dr. Roy as a professor. And
Don't
so
say the date. Don't say the year.
I just graduated 2 years ago, so I'm kidding.
Excellent.
But I trust Dr. Robert. I know him. So, I mean, that helps. That's not a point. That's not some bonus point, right? But, I mean, there's things like that. So, when you get a letter of recognition from somebody, you know them, okay? And that helps. You're involved in Purdue Pre-Vet Club. You're in this building. You interact with some of us. You come to wet labs sometimes, and some faculty members are in, so they may get to interact with you. You have opportunities to work in research labs sometimes, or work in a teaching hospital as you build relationships. All that's a very positive. The other thing is we know the Purdue undergrad curriculum. So if you get certain grades in certain courses, which we understand are traditionally rigorous, that's good for us to know. Whereas we don't know what it is about every other university. So I think there's those other intangibles that help you as a Purdue undergrad. But you do not specifically get an extra bonus point for your Purdue undergrad. Again, I give a lot of long answers to short.
And if they start working on their first day of freshman, they'll have a longer track record with everybody.
That's exactly right. That's a great point, and it's from day one here, start your journey and make it a positive, as best you can. And again, we talked about grades. Everyone has a bump in the road at some point, and that's not a stopper. You just got to show positive progress after that. Okay? Other questions? All right. So, I'll make these reminders. This has been out there, but prereqs, no longer is animal nutrition required. That does not believe we don't value animal nutrition. But we have, the class of 2022, the current freshman class, is in a new curriculum. We've brought animal nutrition and clinical nutrition into our curriculum. So by doing that, we don't need to add that to a prereq. It's here at Purdue, it's very simple because we have a great ANSI 221 class. So it's easy. But there's a lot of people that don't have an animal nutrition course. So it kind of makes a roadblock for some people. So we have it in the curriculum, so it's no longer a prereq. Calculus, that's been a couple years now. I was sad to see this go because I think it's fun. Calculus is good for your brain. Again, we evaluated how it works in, because prereqs are supposed to give you foundational knowledge to help you launch into veterinary school. So no calculus. Now I would say, and you actually know a lot more than Dr. RH, most, I think, undergrad degrees still require calculus. You're not going to get out of it. It's just not, the only thing, we're still going to see it in the transcript. It's just not going to be factored into the core GPA. The last thing is, again, this is now the third year, no GREs. We do not look at the GRE anymore. There are now two of the schools, Virginia, Maryland, and Michigan State, no longer look at the GRE. So scores still get reported to us. You can, but it is not factored into our calculations. Now, I said there's 3 schools out of all of them, so you still got to take it if you're going to apply somewhere else. But we're not going to hire you. Yes.
So, like you said, the calculus is still required for a lot of majors. A lot of times it's Calc 2 also. If you take one of those programs somewhere else, like at IB Tech or something, because it's cheaper, like, is that going to look bad on your application because you took it there and not here?
Great question. So the question was, what if I took calculus in this Calc 1, Calc 2 at another school because it's in the summer maybe to help with cost of education? No, it's not. The biggest impact here, it's not something you have to have checked off to apply. It secondly doesn't factor in the core GPA. It's just like any class you take, we're going to see it on the transcript. So we're going to put it into the complete review of your academics. What's under the hand? Yes, sir.
What if you took a core STEM class in another country?
Yes, you can do that. Just so it's an accredited university, we accept those grades. Yeah. And so again, it kind of goes back, so I'll just say, ask the question for you all, because someone's going to ask me, I mean, what if you don't take your core classes here at Purdue, or at a, is that a negative? The answer to that is no, if A, they have to be an accredited university, and B, we do look at totality of course load, and we look at where you're taking. So let me give you an example. Physics is traditionally a challenging course, biochemistry for folks. So if we see folks take those kind of courses in the summer, one at a time at maybe a non-major university, we may question the rigor of that course. And so that is something that, there's no points that get deducted or anything. That is something we may look at. We come down to 2 applicants that are as close as possibly can be. When we think about rigor of your academic program leading into this, that could be an indicator that could lean to the other person. Okay?
Does that include, like, if the credit, like, would you value us doing those classes again?
I think, so I harp on educational debt all the time, so I'm happy to see people coming in with credits. So it's a tough one for us because we want people to have that, so that way it can lessen your pre-veterinary time and therefore lessen that dollar sign. It depends on what the rest of your collegiate academic transcript looks like. I think if someone comes in and doesn't have a lot of the core courses, and it's kind of hard to get some of those. I mean, usually it's biology, in fact, sometimes it was math, calculus. Those are the ones that we don't see, that we see as AP a lot of time. The big ones, the upper level ones like biochemistry, organic, physics. Physics sometimes we're seeing now, but those we usually have college credits for, and that makes it fine. I don't think there's any reason to not submit AP biology and things that way. Okay. So we've talked about that. Let's talk about the application process, the review process and stuff. 50.
That includes, like, if the credit, like, would you value us doing those classes again?
I think, so I harp on educational debt coming in with credits. So it's a tough one for us because we want people to have that, so that way it can lessen your pre-veterinary time and therefore lessen that dollar sign. It depends on what the rest of your collegiate academic transcript looks like. I think if someone comes in and doesn't have a lot of some of those, I mean, usually it's biology, in fact, sometimes it was math, calculus. Those are the ones that we don't see, that we see as AP a lot of time. The big ones, the upper level ones like biochemistry, organic, physics. Physics sometimes we're seeing now, but those we usually have college credits for, and that makes it fine. I don't think there's any reason to not submit AP biology and things that way. Okay. So we've talked about that. Let's talk about the application process, the review process and stuff. 55% of our decision is academic based. So QGPA, core GPA, we've talked about what those meant. 55% of our decision. And in general, when you think about health profession admissions, most of us all, whether you're a dentist, a medical school, veterinary school, whatever, it's a point system. And so you think about 55 out of 100 points are based on the GPAs. So right out of the gate, depending on calculations, you're going to get X amount of points for your GPA and your core GPA. Obviously, the higher the GPA or core GPA, the more points you get. Okay? So that's, yes?
What is understanding culture?
Yep, we'll talk about it. So 45% is non-academic, so this is the rest of things, okay? So what I want to say to you is here at Purdue, we do what's called a holistic admissions review. And we truly do this, and this is where culture comes in. We look at the entire applicant. It's not just based on grades, okay? It's not just based on grades. So you have your GPAs and all that, your time to work on your GPAs is from day one of college, or even if you're talking about some coursework that you got credit for before you came, every quiz you take counts, because it all adds up to your final grade, right? So from day one. That's on you. You work through that through your time. And then the rest of this is what you do in your summers, after school time, throughout the year, okay? So experiences, veterinary animal, and research. You all know in VMCAS, those are the 3 areas that you have to input. So if I were you, and I hope that you have a notebook somewhere, you have something, you've been writing this stuff down since you've been doing it. For a lot of folks, it's probably after you're 16, maybe 18, but you're writing down veterinary experience, you've been at a practice, you write down what you do. There's spaces on the VMCAS application where you write down who it's with, where it is, when it was, how many hours, things like that. Then you describe what you do. This is the part, we talk about the purpose of this meeting, to make the best application possible. You have to tell us because we don't know, okay? So when it comes to experience, you have to be very explicit about what you did. So if you shadowed at a veterinary practice for a summer, a small practice, if you just put in the box about explaining what you did, if you put in there, shadowed veterinarian with appointments, that means nothing. And we see that, okay? We don't know if that's meaningful. You could have been just holding the door so it didn't fall shut, behind somebody. We want you to have a meaningful experience. So if I were you, I would put, engage with or talk with clients to get history. Interact with clients to go over discharge instructions. Ran diagnostic tests, because most shadowers or pre-vet students get to run fecals, they get to run heartworm tests and things like that. So put those in there. You don't have to put the whole list of them because there's not a lot of room, but you can put ran diagnostic tests. We'll know that you actively were doing something, not just holding up the wall, right? In surgery, a lot of times pre-vets are helping with prepping the animal, getting it through the surgery room, sometimes monitoring heart rates and things like that, and then helping to bring them out for post-op and watching them as they recover, along with technicians. So if that's the case, you can say provided perioperative care. And by saying perioperative, I know exactly what that means, everything around the surgery time. You don't have to list all that out. If you're responsible for cleaning instruments, put it in there, because that means you're actively doing those kind of things. So my point to this story is share detail, but you have to be concise, because you only have so many characters, okay? So that's what's important, because if we don't know it's meaningful, it's not going to be as valuable in our eyes as how we determine things.
Do you fill this in on a day-to-day, like on your calendar?
Sure.
day-to-day,
I think you
or
can do
just
this when you do it. I would encourage you all just to have a notebook or on your computer, just to have a running document where you put, maybe on a weekly, or so you remember what you did. Because sometimes 4 years later, it's hard to remember what time periods you were in when you did X, Y, and Z. And so if you have kind of a log, a journal of that, that would help you out. And it can be however you see fit of doing it. I think that's up to you, but I would just have some record of it. So when it's time to do this application, you're not having to think back and trying to be exact. But you have to have start and end dates in the application.
How far back can you count your experiences? Like, could you consider what you did in high school or no?
So veterinary animal research experience can go back through high school. Yes. Yeah. All right, so animal experience. So veterinary experience is anything with a veterinarian. Animal experience is anything with an animal that's not including a veterinarian. So animal science labs count as animal experience. Okay? Working at a shelter, working at a stable, working on a farm. I grew up on a dairy farm. Now, I could not count when I applied, or whatever I was, 21 years old. I didn't take 21 years times 365 days times 24 hours. Can't do that, right? It has to be meaningful activity. So when I was a younger person in grade school, that's when I took over taking care of the cats. So I can start counting that, and I had to put that on there, explain what my role was. Just because you live with a dog or cat, that's not animal experience. Okay? We see that every year. People put their age times 365 times 24. I walk my dog. No, you didn't. At 1 year old, you did not do that. So just think about what you're putting there, because that also tells us your integrity of completing this application. So be precise, but also think about how it represents you. It's got to be meaningful activities.
So what if you foster animals? Would you
Yep.
count amount of days times their 24?
Yeah, I think it really depends. I mean, you're not really doing anything with them in the middle of the night. I mean, you got to think about that. It's really about when you're actively doing something with them. Yeah. Can we go?
Yeah, go ahead.
Knock them back.
This is
sure would. So I would say, yeah, that's animal experience for the boarding part, and then when you maybe came up front to help hold a patient for a physical and things like that, that's veterinary experience.
I learned this from Rochelle. I think she kept a journal, and she said it was very helpful when she went through the interview. They asked her, "How did you get these numbers?" And she said, "I kept a journal, weekly, daily, whatever," and it gave her credibility. Can you imagine somebody saying, "Well, I just multiplied this out. I did it from memory."
Right. That's exactly right.
Yeah.
It's a very good point. Rochelle was at the vet camp, and we give them a little journal. So let's see. Well, there you go.
Should we have the veterinarians that we work with sign it?
You don't have to do that per se. I mean, technically, I'm not going to tell you if we do this or not, but you do list contact information for veterinarians. It's not unheard of that veterinarians are called about recorded experience.
Mm-hmm.
So again, you're representing yourself in this application, so make sure it's appropriately cited and things and
And then come to this meeting.
So what if the veterinarian is retired?
Not a problem. Not a problem. You would list that, I mean, you just put their information, and if that's the case, it's not against you at all.
Is there like a certain number of hours that you work for?
So the other question was, what if you're veterinarian retired? What do you do? It's not against you at all. You list their name, the contact information you have for them, and that's all you can do. The other question is, what about the other question was, you asked me,
Like a certain number of
hours, minimum hours, sorry. It's such a great question, I got stumbled on that. So those are minimum hours. We do not have minimum hours here at Purdue. Now, some schools do. So I encourage you to look online, look in the VMSAR, and make sure you know if schools have minimum hours. So what we mean by that is, here in veterinary animal research, it says you must have X number of hours. Even in animals, sometimes they say you must have 400 hours of dog and cat, 400 hours of cattle, 400 hours of swine, so make sure you know what that is. Here at Purdue, we do not do that. We're looking for someone that has a combined application that shows dedication, commitment to this profession, understanding what they're getting into, because they may not be working with animals. Some people may want to do a research track that's limited with animals. So they may have very little here and a lot here, and that's totally fine. It's very rare that we see somebody have all three of these maxed out, if you want to say maxed out, because these are different interest pots. Now again, it's good to do that, because that helps you with the overall package, but it's very rare to see that. Yes?
I know there's a component on application that says when you're putting in your experiences to describe the key roles and responsibilities that you had. If it was, you're putting in the experience, but you didn't, or you gained a good experience from it, but you don't really want to go in that direction with your veterinary career. Is that something that you'd like us to put in there? Kind of like, I took this experience and this is what I gained from it, however.
So that section you're talking about, the question was, there's the section about explaining what your experience was. That's really about that whole part about telling us what you did. We don't waste or don't use that box of space to put your career intention. That's really what your essays are for and things like that. You're just, because at the stage of pre-vet, even the stage of veterinary school, for at least the first couple of years, I'm happy when someone comes in and says, I don't know what kind of veterinarian I'm going to be in 4 years, because things change. So I don't think people have to come in and say X. That doesn't have to happen. It's about exposing to all the plethora of opportunities in our profession. There was a question up this way, I thought. Or yes, we'll come up there.
So the idea of experiences, I'm in biochemistry, so I'm probably going to be doing a lot of research. Does research have more or less value compared to veterinary?
So the question is, how do we weight the experiences? And no, it does not. Experiences, in a relative manner, are all equal. They're all equal. Yes. So great, we'll start below and we'll go up.
If you have a record of recommendation from a veterinarian that you worked with in high school, did you use that recommendation for your LOCs, your electronic?
So you're saying if you have one already written? So two things. One is you can't submit, no you can't, because you can't submit paper forms. They have to do it online.
If it is
No, because it's not in the VMCAS system. Yeah, they have to, through this system, through the CAS portal, they have to go in and do this. And I would say you would want that because they haven't seen your growth since that time of high school. You want a more modern approach and look at you. It's a better letter of recommendation.
That's a good point. More current.
Is that specifically what experience you have with research or just lab experience? I wouldn't know that counts to lab, that would kind of diagnose that.
So when we talk about research experience, we're really talking about the scientific method. So it's really about the research idea. And it doesn't have to be with animals. I always use my example. If you love the Pythagorean theorem, and you want to go into math science and we study the Pythagorean theorem, that could be research experience, right? It's about really we're looking at those that are looking at scientific method and developing those skills. It can be field research, it can be benchtop research. It doesn't have to be with an animal. So a diagnostic lab, to me, that's veterinary experience. That's veterinary experience. Because you're running either pathology or diagnostic clinical pathology tests based on a patient for either the diagnosis of disease or the evaluation of the current metabolic state. This research we're talking about, looking at a question, trying to find an answer or support there of an answer. All right, leadership and communication, they kind of go hand in hand. Also on the application, you're going to be asked, what are your activities you're involved in? What awards have you won? What employment have you had? Those type of things. So again, this is where you list those out. Now, which every school is a little different, and so I think this is where you have to look. You have to think about who you're applying to. Here at Purdue, we do not look at awards, extracurricular activities, work prior to college. You can list them, but we're not going to evaluate this. We're looking at, because really what we're looking at is how is your leadership and communication as a collegiate student impacted you and that holistic picture of you with your grades. Because we're looking at you as a college student. How is your whole package? What do you look like as that? So that's how we do it. There are some universities that do count high school activities. So you need to make sure you read those schools. And if you're applying to somebody that has that, you need to list those in there. But if you're only applying to Purdue, then you don't have to do that. If you're unsure, go ahead and list them. But make them significant if it's high school, okay? We traditionally see high school stuff, and we don't have a problem with it, and I think if you were really, really involved in 4-H and FFA and some very veterinary or animal intense type things, I would go ahead and list it. Because it gives us kind of a foundation of where you're coming from, but as far as what we truly are looking at is that collegiate experience. Okay, makes sense on that? Okay, understanding the profession and culture. So what does that mean? That's a very ambiguous statement. Well, we want to know in this holistic review, we're going to take everything together, including your essays, and then see what you understand about veterinary medicine, as what your career path is, how you're going to apply the knowledge you have, how you're going to help society, how you value the role of veterinarians in society's interaction with veterinarians. That brings up a culture idea. How and what you think as being a professional means, integrity, work ethic, all those kind of things. So here at Purdue, we have a very strong belief in ethical people, high professional standards, those kind of things. So we're looking for indicators that show if you've already are practicing those or just demonstrating those. So that's the culture part. So it's a catch-all to those kind of things. Because holistic means we look at your entire application and look for those points, and that's what brings it back together. It's not just one little thing, okay? And that's different from school to school. Not all schools do that. Yes?
If there's a leadership opportunity that is like, if you're a junior and it would be a position as a senior, but before the application is due, would you suggest, is it okay to still put it on there even though you haven't started the position?
Sure. So the question is, do you list things that are going to happen in the future? The answer is no.
Okay.
The application is a record of your activities. So it's a documented record of your activities.
Okay.
So that also goes back to experience. So if you fill your application out in June, and you still have the rest of June, July, and some of August to get hours, don't put on there, go forward. So if we see the submission date was June 15th, and you've got my experiences go to August 15th, we're going to question those 2 months. Because that's not a very ethical statement, because you don't know what you're going to do. You may have all intent to work 40 hours a week, but you don't know you did that.
Hmm.
So don't do it. It's about what you've done to that point in time. Yes.
That's different though for transcript, like what you're planning on.
Sure, yeah, sorry, that's on all the non-academic, so the question was, that's different for academics. Correct, you will be asked to say, what courses are you gonna take in the future? We do ask you that, but the question actually asks you, what are your courses in the future? This is about what have you done to this point in time. Yes.
So if you don't make it into that school your first round applying, how would you go about like contacting
Okay.
and asking them like how can I improve my application?
Great question. The question is, what if you don't get accepted the first time? First of all, that happens. It happens routinely, and you should apply again, but you should better yourself. So here at our college, I have people on my team that you would meet with that are not faculty members or staff members in our college. Our admissions manager, Ms. Lori Stout. You would set a meeting up with her, and anybody that gets a deny, you get a link to how you do that, and you schedule a review session, and she will go through with you general comments and recommendations by the committee about your application. So then the most important thing for you to do is take that and act on it. Because if we see you in the next cycle, and I should say that it's independent every time. So we don't take your record from last time and have it beside your new record. We don't do that. But if, we remember people because we're human, right? So if we look at this, we're like, we wanted them to do this or this or that. If that's not happening, that's not necessarily positive. Okay? So there are feedback sessions you can have. And most schools do that. Not all, but most schools do that. So you follow that instruction that way. Yes, sir.
Do you have to have your core classes done before you apply?
Great question. So the question is, you have to have your core prereqs done and your prereqs done? No. They have to be able to be completed by the end of the spring semester of the year you're applying. So for the class of 2022, the current first years, many of them were finishing up a couple or 3 classes maybe in this academic year. Anybody that's applying right now has to have their prereqs done by May 2019 or June, whatever the end of that semester is for them. The one we used to hold off on was animal nutrition, and we no longer have that, so now the answer is everything has to be done by the spring semester. Yes?
So if we didn't get in our junior year, is there, you have to wait a whole other year? Like, if you get in your senior year, did you have to wait a year to get to that school?
So if your question is, if you don't get in 1 year, you have to wait till the next year, the answer is yes, because it's an annual application
No,
process.
received, if you get accepted the second time, how much longer would you have to wait to start that?
It's the same, so it's always, applications start in May applications open for this class that everybody's applying for right now in May 2018. They'll close September 17th of 18. These students will take their seat in August of 2019. Yeah. Yes?
Do you get feedback after rejected interviews also, or is it just that?
The question is, do we do feedback after declining interviews, even at that stage? Yes. So at any point in the process that you may be declined admission, you have the opportunity to have feedback. And I will tell you, we don't start that feedback until kind of after the interview, even from the early part until after the interview stage, because the team is very busy, and it's not going to make a difference at that point. So we have to wait till kind of there in March, those interview appointments start. Yes?
What do you look for during interviews and what's the advice you have?
So a couple things during these interviews. Again, when we've done all this stuff, this is all the stuff we look at. It gets you to December, and then when we make a decision, it's are you going to be offered an interview or not? We will take somewhere between probably 250 to 300 people for interviews. Traditionally on the last 2 Fridays of January. There are 2 different days. You would come to one of those days. They're 30-minute interviews. There are 12 interview teams. Come to our office. I interview, and so myself and another faculty member sit there. You may have one of the IVMA, the veterinarians from around the state. Most time you have 2, but for 3 of the teams, there's 3 people because there's 3 of them. Again, it's a 30-minute behavioral interview where we talk about things. It's not really a grilling. I don't think it's a grilling. In the interviews that I conduct and when I do them, it's about we're trying to take you from an application to a person. I want to know why. I'm going to ask you tell us that you want to do food animal medicine, but you've never, ever shadowed, worked at a food animal practice, stepped foot on a dairy farm. Reconcile that for me. That would be a question I would ask. I may ask you to talk about the Krebs cycle. I'm kidding. I will tell you, I was asked the world's population, and I was asked if there was an epidemic that occurred in a certain part of the world, how quickly would it cause a certain amount of percent of death? I was asked that during an interview. It was a great time. Things have changed a little bit. That was an epidemiologist that I interviewed me. So it's about getting to know you. And it's your time to share things about your experiences and how you're going to take this degree. First of all, be successful and work hard in vet school. And then secondly, take that degree and make it a career. We're going to talk also about how you're going to interact. This is a very team-based profession. We're not on islands here as a profession. So we not only work with other veterinarians, we work with veterinary nurses, we work with veterinary assistants, and so we want to know, how do you get along with people? Because here at Purdue, we have a lot of team-based work in the curriculum. So we want to know, how do you function in teams? And it's not about how do you function. Tell us an experience of where you were successful in a project with a team. And you would talk about that. Were you the leader that wouldn't listen to anybody? Or did you, no one else would do their work, so you did it all? It's those kind of questions are what you're trying to answer. We're going to talk to you about the economics of the profession. How are you going to handle the economics of the profession? Do you have a plan in place? There's no right or wrong answers for a lot of those. It's about understanding who you are. The other part of it is it's understanding how you do an interview. So this is the question about what can you prepare. You know, and I know it's a nerve-wracking thing. You know, I did my interview 25 years ago. I think back about how long it's been. And I can still remember it today, like it was yesterday. And I remember I had a classmate who was a classmate, got an interview before me. He walked out of the room in tears because he had like this whole stack of research papers that he was co-authoring on. He only got through one of them to talk about. And I'm this little kid from Evansville, Indiana, growing up on a dairy farm. I'm like, I have no research to talk about. I have nothing like that. I'm never going to get in. So don't let all these stories out there haunt you. Okay, you go in and be positive. You go in and be confident, and you have a discussion. And you can practice doing that, okay? Talk to your classmates, talk to your roommates, talk to your dog, talk to your cat, talk to a mirror. Practice someone asking you a question on the spot and coming up with a concise and coherent answer.
Jim, I'm going to add, there's places on campus that will do mock interviews.
It's a great point. And you can even, I think, through CCO do like, you can look on your computer screen, right? Or they'll video you. And certainly, our trust here now, and I know that they do some advising or counseling on for the pre-professional programs about interviewing and things, whether it's veterinary school, medical school, all those kind of things. So you can practice interviewing. It's not something you all do very much, so it's okay to practice that. The biggest thing you don't want to do is go into an interview and pass out. But to stand there and just freeze or turn red when you can't answer questions. You know, take the time, hear the question, think about it in your brain, and then come back with a coherent, concise response. You don't want to take one response for the entire 30 minutes would not be positive. Okay? So practice that. It's something you can practice.
Mm-hmm.
Any more questions on interviews? Have I scared you now about interviews?
For experience, if you have like general medical stuff, like with physical.
I think that could come up other places maybe in your application, but it really needs to be veterinary centric. So I would, now, if you have some kind of advanced training in another health career that is medical related, I think I would make sure that's included somewhere in your application. Yes?
Do you have any additional requirements for international applicants?
No. Nope. Same.
As the academic, also the academic requirements?
Same. The only thing is if you have an international transcript, it has to go through a clearinghouse, but that's all done at VMCAS. That's the only difference. You know, international students are in the non-resident pool. That's where you go. All right, so we talked about that. We talked about the letters. We talked about the interview. So you've now kind of got a picture of that whole process. So I want to talk about the last part, which would be great essay questions. So last year was the first year after. and it caused havoc across North America. I will tell you, these questions came out of 2 years of workshops. 2 years. I'm not going to tell you I was responsible for them because you all do not me, but I was chairing the thing. So, I'm not going to sit here today and tell you how to answer these questions because it's about you, right? My advice, I put all three, there's 3 of them, so I have them all on different slides. My advice to you on these are this. Read the question, understand the question, and address the question in your response in a concise and coherent way with no spelling and grammatical errors. These are 3 of the most important essays you're going to write in your career at this point. So, why do I say that? If I have someone, and now granted I review all these on my Surface Pro now, but I circle grammatical errors, I circle spelling errors, because it goes back to attention to detail, and as a veterinarian I have to have precision. If I write a prescription and I say 50 instead of 5, I'll kill a patient. So I have to look for people with precision and attention to detail. These are the most important essays you're going to write. So don't write them the night before you hit the submit button, which people do, and it's evident. Write them. We have great resources on campus. Again, I keep talking about the Center for Professional Advising, but that's a great place. We have the OWL Lab, I think, does it.
The Purdue Writing Lab, right?
Writing Lab.
Yeah.
I mean, your advisors are probably, there's all kinds of people that want to help you with this. Write them, put them away for a week, come back and look at them. Touch them up, and then go ask people to read them. Ask people that have no idea what veterinary medicine is about, too, because they're the best people to read it, because they're not going to read over stuff because they understand it. But have a lot of people look at it, and make sure it's communicating something, okay? But it's got to be about you. So when you read this statement, I think it's pretty obvious what we're asking for, but address the question at hand. So this is the first one. And there are character limits, which someone's going to probably ask me what they are, and I don't remember off the top of my head. Maybe someone. How many?
The first 2 questions is 1,500 character, and then the third question is 2,000 character.
So it's 15, 15, 20, right?
And that's including space
Yes.
and everything.
Yeah, Vimcast does this weird, we were trying to do words and their computer can't do that. So yeah, it's 15, 15, 20. Thank you. Because last year it was half of that for the record.
Wow.
And that's another whole story. That was about 5 meetings to figure that part out too. So here's the second one.
These are good.
I know some people are writing these down, so I'll take some time. So again, the old question used to be, why do you want to be a veterinarian, basically. It was pretty open-ended. But. So critical thinking is important to us. This uses critical thinking skills. Does everyone have this? Now I will tell you, and you should always, I can't promise you these are going to be the questions for the next 5 years. But, I mean, this is a good example. I mean, this is what they are in the last year's cycle and this year's cycle. Here's the last one. It's a lot longer. So my advice again on these is to really write them.
These are tough.
Address the points.
These are tough.
Make sure when you walk away, and someone that has no idea about veterinary medicine looks at this, can read the question and understand that what you're saying answers that, you've been successful. There are no right or wrong answers to these questions. I think that's a key point. What's right or wrong are grammatical errors, spelling errors, not answering the question asked. That's right or wrong. That's wrong. I would also suggest to you, and I've always said this, I don't think you need to take those precious 1,500, 2,000 characters and quote, Ralph Waldo Emerson. I don't care what you have to say. I want to hear about you. Okay? Don't spend half your essay quoting someone. And I don't think that's necessary. It's a personal opinion, so if you get in my pool, let me know what would happen. But, it's not, these don't make or break you, but this is about you. So you don't, I mean, we see very flowering ones that have a lot of quotes. That doesn't, I mean, that's not telling me about you and your response to this. So think about the precious amount of character spaces you have. Characters you have. Does everybody have this that wants this? Other questions as people are getting recorded?
Now this goes to the 55%, right? It was 45%
That is correct.
academic, and then this is part of the 55.
I'm sorry. No, it's 55% academic. This goes to the 45%.
Oh, okay. Did I have that wrong?
Yeah,
Okay,
this is
55
This
academic.
is that, the rest of your type.
The rest of it.
Yes.
I had a question about, do you value more applicants that use the entire, word limit, or do you value more people that, is it a quality over quantity?
So the question is, do we value quality over quantity? We're not done. Quality is important. I mean, if you can say, I'm tongue in cheek there, but say something meaningful and impactful. If you say that in 800 characters, that's great. But if I'm reading someone's 1,500 characters and it's just going on and on and on, it could have ended back at 800, that's not a good impression, right? Coherent and concise is important. But you have all that space to elaborate. Yes, sir.
So you mentioned these as like essays, but like with the character limit, are they really more just concise, decent, good paragraphs?
I mean, they're still called essays, but they really are paragraphs. I mean, I haven't done, I don't know, it seems like they're page long by the time I read these things. I mean, there are 3 of them. I mean, they're still substantial. Most people have a couple paragraphs or more.
But they're not like an intro and
No.
they're the bodies and
No, I don't think you can really do that with that. We still call them essay questions. They're really statements in just a better way. Everybody has that one to that? Okay, so we're at the question phase.
How many questions are there?
Dr. Pete there.
That's a good sign.
Other questions? It's very boring here.
Mm-hmm.
I think, the university's in this time-saving thing. They're
Yeah.
shut their admission off at school, and you will be able to be successful at, because every school comes with a little bit of a difference in maybe their college culture. I think schools do put out there what they look for. Some schools do have some quote-unquote targeted areas, and if you fit one of those, then that would be a smart place to apply. So I would really research those schools and look. I would also look at cost of living in different places, because it's all part of the educational package. We have 30 great veterinary schools. We're very fortunate we have 30 great accredited veterinary schools in this country. Everyone's going to end with the same doctor of veterinary medicine degree. Here at Purdue, we're all ABA accredited. We go through our accreditation in 2 weeks. So we have a fun week ahead of us in 2 weeks. You all get that same degree. People ask me, well, what if I want to do marine mammal medicine when I graduate from vet school? Well, that's great, and you should want to do that. But vet school is not the place for you to get a marine mammal veterinary education. Because at Florida, where they have dolphins, in their nearby areas, you're still learning anatomy of the mammals, and invertebrates and invertebrates, all that stuff. It's not a different curriculum. And they may have some electives where you can go and see a dolphin. We don't have any in the Wabash, so we can't do that. But, there are some differences that way. I jokingly say to my colleagues at Colorado State, everyone applies at Colorado State, which is great, but you're in vet school, and you're not going to be hiking every weekend, okay? So I think you have to make some financial decisions as well, that's in that. But it's looking back, where are you going to be successful? That's the question that everybody want to stop and ask. So if that means you think these 5 places, and you have the finances to apply to 5, because as you all know, every time you click a school name, that fee goes up. In addition, at Purdue, we do not have a secondary fee. Other schools do have secondary fees. So it's called a supplemental application fee. Other schools have that. We don't have that here. What you pay VMCAS is what you pay VMCAS. Some schools have another $100, $200 on top of when you apply, then they send you another application. So that's a part of it too. You have to look at prereqs. Do you meet the prereqs? So you'll be amazed how many applications we get that people have not met pre-regs. And that's a wasted $150, $200. Because you don't even get off the desk by one of my staff members. So I think those are the things to think about. But yes, you should always apply to your in-state school. It makes the most sound financial sense. Yes?
If I have a job at a vet clinic for every summer, should I stay at that vet clinic or should I expand somewhere else?
I think it depends on, yes, you should. I mean, veterinary experience is great, and that keeps the bill, that's good. We do like to see some variance in animal experience. So you can get that practice is only cats. You may want to try to find some time to work at some place, or be shadow at some place, or visit a farm or something where you get some other experiences on the animal side. That would help as well. But I think a solid job where you're doing that is great in the workplace.
Does like a job during your high school career, will that count for experience? Like I worked at a research hall building for.
So for experiences, yes. For experience, those high school counts. Yeah. Other questions?
So you said that when you're figuring out whether to accept it or give the interview to the applicants, there's two members who do it. Is there ever instances where the two of you guys disagree?
Oh, sure. So the way the process works is the committee pair, we review, we score, we're supposed to come to agreement. Every once in a while there's a discuss stuff there that we use. And we take that to the full committee and we say, this is my opinion, this is their opinion. And it's not really an opinion of, it's really about this is what we see, this is what we see. It's that's what I see, this is what they see. And the whole committee, if I don't review someone's file, as I'm looking at all the applicants and I see trends about them from the scoring, I may bring someone up and I did not even review them. So it's truly a committee process. The pairs are really there to work the application and glean the data. And we have a very standardized rubric, so we're fair and consistent to everyone. Because you can imagine with 1,100 or 1,400 applications, as I'm eating my turkey on Thanksgiving, reading applications, we got to have some way to be consistent and fair. So we have a very standardized rubric. Yes, ma'am.
Looking ahead, do you see it as more of a value or a detriment of people who, undergraduates who graduate in 3 years versus like 4 years?
The question is, does your rate of graduation or your time of graduation? No. What we're looking at is your academic preparedness and that whole picture of what you did with the time you had to put in an application. So, no. And the contrary would be if it's 5 years. That does not really impact us unless that 5 years is because there's a lot of academic issues that led to that. That would be the negative. Lieutenant Graves.
What are the opportunities you have in the College of Veterinary Medicine for undergrads?
There's opportunities for undergrads here in the College of Veterinary Medicine. We have in the veterinary teaching hospital, there are certainly volunteer opportunities, and you can see the front desk of the hospital, and they can get you to the right people to look at the volunteer program. In our oncology department, there's positions. There's various places in the hospital. We actually have some paid positions too, from everything from kind of grooms and that side of things to there's some reception positions that undergrads have. So those are probably it. There's often research. If you have a faculty member that you can connect with that's doing something you like, that's a potential. We have something called a research scholars, a veterinary research scholars summer research experience. That's a stipend. We do take veterinary students from not only Purdue but other places, but pre-vet students. And so there's about 6 of those positions. And it's a summertime research where you pair it up with the faculty member and you have a project you work on, you present at a national conference that summer. And the stipend's about $5,000 to $6,000 that you get paid for that summer. So there's opportunities that way. And so that application will come out anytime here. So be watching, you can look on our website and you'll see that. And we'll make sure that pre-professional knows about it as well. Other questions? Any other experiences you did and things that way? If you've done things here on campus, you've been involved in pre-vet or the vet camp, 4-H, FFA, All those kind of things are important because that means you've had a commitment to our profession, so you want to make sure you include those in your application. There's a hand.
Yeah, I was wondering, is there any, like there's 30 vet schools. Is there any place a student that's interested in vet schools to go to see the ranking? Is there a number one vet school?
So I will say there are rankings out there.
There are rankings out there.
No one knows how they're made.
Okay, so they're not dependable.
No. I mean, I think we're like number 14 if I last time.
Okay.
I will tell you that the rankings are made, what we know about the rankings are made on size of college. That's the best we can say. The schools that have huge research budgets and huge faculties always are at the top end.
Okay.
I think, we're at 84 students. We love 84 students. There are schools with 160 students in a class. I walk down the hallway, this is good or bad, I know every student. I'm watching. I know every student. So there's something about that, about the ability to support students and do that. That's, I think, something very genuine about our college. But again, it goes back to where you can be successful. Some people want a bigger number, so that way there's some anonymity there. But when it comes back to rankings, as best we can tell, it really goes back to some of those kind of factors that are really outside the control of what we can even do, because it goes back to budgets and all that.
Okay, so then another question is, say somebody's interested in swine medicine. Is there some place they can go to see the best vet schools that turn out,
Yeah, I think so. The question is, what about special interest or species interest? I think some of that goes back to where you are. Certainly the animal demographics of a state play into what the vet school does. We have a very, very important poultry program here because we have a lot of herds in the state. So I think what I would say to that is, not all schools can do everything, and that's really what we look at. Here at Purdue, we have areas of focus on infectious disease, equine sports medicine, poultry is there, and so those are key things. For example, if you want to do swine, I think we do well. We have a lot of swine pigs in the state. We graduate each year, 2 to 3 people are going to do exclusively swine, and they do very well. But during their time here at Purdue, we value your ability to be able to leave our program on what are called off-campus block during your 4th year, where you can spend 3 weeks at some big, huge swine facility or practice that does that. So we know that we can't do everything. For those people that want to do marine mammal work, we know that we don't have those here. We're never going to have those here. So those students in their 4th year apply for an off-campus block that they can tailor their education a little bit. We all have to have that general DBM-based knowledge we can pass board and graduate. But if you want to tailor it some, we allow for that to happen. That's a nice thing about tracking. As we track here, we have that goes into it. So I think that affects that. There's no one place to go look at and see this school does this. To me, it goes back as, what does that school do in the area that they're at?
I was just wondering if maybe all the schools had something on their website that say, we especially focus on.
I think if you go to their missions, like we talk about areas of oncology and things like that, that's what they have. And so maybe that would be the best way to look at that.
Okay.
It's out there, I think, but it's not really explicit.
Okay.
Last couple questions.
This is kind of a weird question, but on the experiences, you have to list, if you're a part-time, full-time, temporary, so every single one, would that be the same for non-experienced teams? How are we supposed to base it off of hours per week?
I think, and again, that's an added thing is, now we don't really look at that too much, but I guess how I address it, we're trying to figure out what you're doing at that time. So if this is all you did, short of anything during that time period, then it's a full-time type thing. So I think I would answer that about the amount of time you spent there. That's probably the best way to answer